Hi everyone, welcome back to Meet the Paralympian. Today we are here for another episode and we're delighted to be joined with Ali Jawad, who's a British powerlifter. Um, Ali competes in three-time Paralympian who won a silver medal in Rio. He's a world and European champion and has competed in the Commonwealth Games. Ali's an athlete representative and is a student at the University of Birmingham competing for a PhD. He raises money for Crohn's disease and is an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, we're incredibly glad to have Ali with us today. And we're here basically to ask him a couple of questions during his journey, his life story, and to everyone who's joined us directly on Zoom, feel free to comment, ask questions. Likewise, if you've tuned in on YouTube, feel free to comment, and we'll see if we can address some of your comments. So, thanks for joining us, Ali.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. And we're also joined with two of our spectacle officers. We've got Sports Officer Zain
Hi
and
everyone.
Community and Activities Officer Inshaw. And so, really, Ali, I want to kick off today's session. This is a question we ask everyone who's joined with us, and that is how did it feel to represent Team GB?
Oh wow. So I've had that dream since I was 6 years old. So it's for me, when I made my first games, it was 13 years in the making of having that dream initially. So it took a lot of kind of not only hard work, but actually trying a lot of sports that I thought I was good at to make them. So the one moment where you realize that you're a Paralympian is that when you get that massive kit drop and you're trying it on in the mirror, that's when you know that you finally made it as a Paralympian. That was my kind of initial. That was my initial feeling. For me, like there's no prouder moment than it is to represent your country, and that's what makes it all worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and obviously, when you're not competing, you're training. And with I don't mean to mention the C word, the coronavirus, as soon as we start this, but obviously your training sessions will have changed significantly. How have you been able to keep that going during lockdown and during the pandemic? And how have you been able to keep fit, really, keep your regime going?
Well, I'm going to be quite well. It's been quite weird in terms of how we've approached it. So I know a lot of people have struggled, but I think what's really good about the elite system, anyway, is that as elite athletes, we adapt to any situation. We're very adaptable. We're very flexible. Even though we have a fundamental plan, that plan has to be as adaptable as possible. So when the virus hit and we found that there is a postponement and there is a lockdown, we adapted quite quick. So I converted my living room into a gym. Got all the equipment in, and for me as a powerlifter, all I need is weights and a barbell, and for me, I've actually been really good during lockdown because I'm literally living in my gym.
Yeah. No traveling needed.
Actually, it's way better for me. Yeah.
And did you buy the equipment during lockdown?
No, so I was lucky enough to be kind of obviously with the support of the program. We got kit from the gym.
Right, that's helpful.
I borrowed it.
Because I imagine the prices went way up for the regular consumer, didn't they, when that happened?
Yeah, but I think because of my equipment's quite very expensive equipment. So the barbell has to be sanctioned in terms of like the specs of it. Obviously, the weights I lift, they're bumper plates, a Lyco, they're very, very expensive to buy. So actually, for me, I was lucky that I got to borrow them from the gym. But also as well, I had companies actually reaching out and actually offering me equipment for free because they want to be associated with somebody that could go to the games. They want to help someone during lockdown. So I've been quite lucky in that sense. So I know how lucky I am.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, like in terms of when you became famous, how do you think people started treating you after you became famous and compared to before you actually went in to represent Team GB? Have you seen a change in the way people treat you?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm famous at all. I'd say compared to other Paralympians and other bigger sports, I'm probably a C-lister or something. That's the thing. I'd say like I'm probably more recognizable. Probably got no legs, rather than being an athlete. But I think the last maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, my kind of celebrations after I compete have gone viral. And that's probably why people recognize me, rather than Ali Jawad, the athlete. It's Ali Jawad can do a cartwheel off the bench. He's a legless gymnast. So I think, yeah, for me, I don't really consider myself as famous. I'm a normal boy from Tottenham. So for me, I'd never want fame at all. I just want to be kind of achieve my my dreams rather than having the fame that comes along with it.
Sounds good, yeah.
Ali, if I may, I've got 2 questions to ask. Firstly, the question has to be: do you watch football?
If I had legs, it'd be my sport.
What team do you support?
Liverpool.
No.
Liverpool.
Massive Liverpool fan.
So you must be chuffed then when they were there last year.
I've been very lucky to meet Klopp at Anfield on the pitch. Yeah, because after I won silver in Rio, I got invited to a game at Liverpool, and got paraded around the pitch before the game. And
why did I not know you back then, Ali?
Oh, forget about that silver medal. That was the best day of my life.
Yeah, man.
Klopp is very.
I can imagine. Did he get a chance to meet any of the players as well, or was it just?
Yeah. So Sturridge, Henderson.
Please don't mention Mo Salah. Please don't mention.
Yeah, Ian Rush was there. It was just unbelievable. Probably one of the best days ever. And everything that you see with Klopp in the media is the same person. I wanted him to be my dad. I was like, be my dad. I apologize for my own dad, but I think my dad would prefer that too. So.
This is done. The interview is done.
You've said too much.
No, on a serious note, as you mentioned that you've been to one of the games at Liverpool. I know competition days are very extensive, where people prepare and then they perform well. They try and win the game for their team and for themselves if it's a solo kind of competition. So what is your thought process on a day when you know that you're going to perform today, you're going to go perform in a different country altogether, there'll be audience, people will have expectations of you. So how do you maintain that balance of, yes, I'm not going to lose my focus, but at the same time, I'm going to win that medal for the country, for the people of my country?
I think how I approach it is that I've always been a big fan of making the process much harder than the actual competition. The idea behind that is if you make training harder, your threshold for your adaptability for difficultness and kind of the unexpected, you're ready. So in comp day, it's easy because in fact, like your volume reduces, you're actually tapering. So you don't feel as tired. You actually feel fresher going into competition than you're on training because you're training so hard. So actually, like all the hard work's been done, and all you have to do is kind of be confident in the process that you've had to go through to pull it off on the day. I think that where people fall down is they get anxious about the unpredictables, the things they can't control. And I always say to people, actually, just don't really think about what you can't control. Just be ready to adapt to it. And if your process is robust enough, you'll be fine on the day. And I've always say to people, like, make sure the process is much harder than the actual day itself.
You've made it sound so easy, Ali, I'll tell you that, because I was playing cricket once and there was 2 people in the audience and then I still couldn't perform. So you've just said it in the most simplistic manner.
See, that sounds like, really good advice for anyone that's actually part of any sport, to be honest, because I think what you tend to see is, especially when you're playing in a major tournament, major final or something, the audience being there, obviously the moment of playing in front of thousands of people, and just occasionally it kind of like can have an impact on your performance. So for yourself to go through that in the training and do all the hard regimes, and when you come into that moment of playing in front of thousands of people, you're already ready for that in a sense. That's something that anyone that wants to be part of sport and wants to make it to that level, like myself here.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, that this is the part where Zan's going to try and squeeze the fact that he plays cricket on a
Yeah,
professional
make it
level.
about yourself, Zayn. Yeah.
Oh, no, there's something that I can learn from Ali's journey. Yeah, I like to pick up these things from, when I meet the Paralympians, I pick up from their regimes and their training and try to implement that. So for me, it's a big thing that to go through that in the training process. So that when it comes to the big day, I'm ready for that. So thanks for that, Ali. I'm going to take up on that.
So the one thing that you can't replicate is thousands of people screaming at you, because obviously in the gym, you've got people there, but it's
Yeah.
not screaming at you apart from your teammates and your coach. So
Difference in.
for
You
me,
see the
I love a crowd, because actually that's another stimulus I can use on the day as energy. That's like a bonus for me.
Yeah.
That gives me the extra 1%, because actually their energy, because I've already done the process, I know I can execute. It's just whether or not I can deal with the noise, and I can, because I love it, because it gives you more energy. So actually use the crowd. Don't be scared by them.
It gets the adrenaline up, doesn't it? I imagine.
You know what? I don't really get I don't get nervous.
Okay.
I don't really. There's no adrenaline for me because I've done it so much.
Yeah.
It's not like the first time. So the first time at the national competition, I was literally like sweating and shaking, and I was so nervous, and the butterflies. And obviously, my first Paralympic Games, same thing, because like this is the top level, and I've always dreamt of being there. But I think having a 15-year career at that level, you get used to using it. You get used to them emotions, and you don't really get butterflies anymore. What I do is I actually get quite excited about actually competing, because actually I rarely compete these days because of my injury, my health. So actually competing for me is actually a privilege to be there, and actually I'm excited to be there rather than being nervous.
Completely. It's probably a good time to put. You said there's a little promo video about kind of summarizes your journey. Could you play that for us? It'd be really good to have a little insight, and then we can ask you some questions on that.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it works. Oh. Can you see it?
We can.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to expand it.
Go, Ali Jawad. This is now about pride, pushing himself to the limits. He's got the silver medal for Great Britain. He's put the ghost of London behind him at last, and I know that's been haunting him for a long time. He's come away from the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games with a silver medal he should be extremely proud of.
There you are.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Really.
So I noticed that in the video, it said that you were diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and that was during the London Olympics. Tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, it was actually not London. I got sick the night before I competed in Beijing.
Okay, Beijing. My apologies. Tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, so going into Beijing, well, for me it was just like a dream come true. So I deferred my place at uni after college, trained full time for the first time ever. I was funded, so I was actually earning money at that age, which is crazy compared to a lot of my friends. It was like living the dream. It was always what I wanted, and I qualified for Beijing on my 19th birthday. What a great present that was to myself.
God, yeah.
That was the best birthday kick I've ever had. And yeah, going into the games, yeah, I was buzzing. I was in the Paralympic Village in Beijing with all these superstars that I just saw on TV, and I was part of the team, and I was like, this is absolutely insane. I felt it felt like a dream. I felt numb in terms of it felt like a fantasy land. And then had my last training session 3 days before I competed. Felt incredibly good. And I was never going to medal. I was there for just the experience. I was so young. And yeah, the night before, came back from dinner, and you know, I felt pretty sick. Started sweating. I was dehydrated. Kind of my stomach was hurting. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And you know, having seen the doctor, they pretty much said like I probably caught something in the village, because obviously that can happen. 10,000 people in a village, that's quite a lot. And yeah, that night, I was literally up all night in the toilet, kind of like vomiting, and you know, and woke up the next day, and I was 3 kilo lighter. I'd lost 3 kilo of body weight overnight, which is unheard of for me. And they were going to pull me out, but I said no. I've worked hard to get here, and I was never going to medal. And the aim was not to come last. And luckily, despite how I felt, I didn't come last, and I was the youngest in the final by about 8-9 years. So for me to be the youngest and still not come last is despite
well, and being sick, really, weren't you? That's quite amazing. I mean, how did it feel when you were actually competing? Did you feel like it was more energy zapping, or?
Oh, I felt really weak.
I bet, yeah.
I felt really weak, and like remember, I was lifting 180, 190 kilo. So imagine feeling weak when that's in your hand. That could crush you. So I just did not. I actually failed 170 in the warm up. Yeah. So like I knew I was in big trouble, but the fact that I kind of turned it around mentally, because I've never been in that situation where things have gone that wrong, was actually a testament to my, what I was capable of. And I felt like, obviously I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was like a bug. So I felt like actually I'm young enough to come back. I benched 182 that day. So actually not too far off from my personal best. And actually I thought, you know what, like I'm young, I can come back in 4 years, and people, all these incredible athletes that I was competing against at 19 were not out benching me. So actually that put me in good stead, not realizing what was going to come.
That's pretty impressive. I don't know how you did it. Well, it shows a lot that, the mind, it's all in the mind, a lot of it, isn't it? If you put yourself forward, you can bench 190 kilograms while sick. God, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, well, it was, I felt it was bad luck at the time. And then obviously things got much worse when I came back, not knowing what's happening to me.
Well, testament to yourself is really amazing. So, yeah.
I think it's the resilience that might have kept you going and still managing expectation and competing in the game. I think that's brilliant, Ali. And
also it's probably the sold out arena in Beijing. You had 10,000 indoor arena screaming, and that, I thought, I like that. That's good. So I used that too. It was the first time I ever competed in front of such a big crowd. Because usually in the UK, powerlifting is it's not a massive sport. Yeah. So like I wasn't really used to competing in front of tens of thousands of people indoor, and they were absolutely nuts. It was great. I loved it.
That noise must be something, that you can't even explain in an enclosed space, having 10,000 people screaming.
Yeah, you literally heard them on your way to the arena. So we parked up and through the back, and you can just hear the roar. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing.
I feel like if I heard that, I'd run away. I'd be like, that's too many people.
You actually, it's weird, you're on the platform and you don't really see the people.
Okay.
All you kind of hear is the noise.
Yeah.
Because I think you have to really focus to see people, because like you're so focused on what you have to do. Actually, it does become a distraction when you're trying to look for people. And actually, I didn't know anybody in the crowd, so I thought, just take the noise.
Yeah.
So Ali, I just wanted to ask about, your competitions there. Like, what kind of things do you have to go through before you actually compete and come onto the venue? I mean, the noise and the crowd bit is one sort of aspect, but anything before that, before you actually come on to compete, what kind of things do you have to go through?
Well, like it being a bodyweight sport means that I need to be in weight, and obviously like the lifestyle behind all that is, well, as a kid, it was challenging because obviously you want to go out with your mates and have food and do the normal stuff. But I couldn't do that. So I had to learn to cook and meal prep pretty quickly. So actually, like before the competition, you kind of you weigh yourself quite a lot, like probably daily, just to track your weight, see if there's any changes. All my food's weighed. Obviously, you've got training on top of that, and then leading up to competition, you're kind of like fine tuning rather than training hard, because obviously you've done the work. You just kind of have to believe in the process. And then on the day of the competition, obviously you kind of, there's 2 hours where you get weighed, and then 2 hour there's 2 hour gap between getting weighed and competing. So you get weighed, there's kit check, making sure the kit's fine, and you're literally in a room with your rivals. You're literally half naked with your rivals because you're getting weighed. And it's like weird, like looking each other up and down, going, "Oh, he's muscly today. Oh, this is he looks good." And then you got other people going, "Oh, it looks bad." But actually, don't let it deceive you, because it's not how you look that reflects what you lift. For lifting, it's not about how toned you are. It's actually just how much you can. It's how you apply maximal force, and that comes in all shapes and sizes. So for me, like, I learned pretty quick not to compare my shape to anybody else's, because actually they can still be either stronger or weaker. It doesn't really matter what they look like, and that's what I had to learn quite quick. Because as a kid, I used to always go, "Oh, he looks way better than me." But yeah, like, and then coming out on the platform at an international event when you've got thousands and thousands of people, for me, I love crowds. And that's what I like. That's where I get the extra ounce of energy. I know a lot of people they get intimidated. But for me, like, because it's something that you can't train for, I use it as more ammo to compete better rather than to run away from it. Plus, I can't run. I've got no legs, so I have to do it, don't I?
Yeah, some people actually like using that to their advantage. So my follow-up to that is, how does the classification system work in powerlifting?
Yeah, so powerlifting, para powerlifting is quite unique. So a lot of Paralympic sports, you are classified on your disability, on your level of disability. For powerlifting, everyone competes against each other. There's no classification system. It's more of you're split into bodyweight classes, so you're competing against everyone. As long as you hit the minimum criteria in terms of pressing the bar safely, then you're in. So yeah, for me, it's actually it's unique because it's the only para sport that classifies athletes just by body weight and not by disability.
Ali, I think you did mention something about food and what you ate when you were actually practicing and preparing yourself. So is there any particular diet that do you follow around the year, or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so I think it's probably common knowledge that if you're in a bodyweight sport, so like boxing or taekwondo or judo, a lot of athletes probably said about they don't live at weight. They kind of a lot of people yo-yo, especially boxers. They yo-yo, so they're probably about a stone heavier in the off season if they're not competing. I felt that when I was kind of younger, I felt that yo-yoing wasn't optimal at all. It wasn't. Having to lose 5 kilo in a short space of time is horrible. You did not want to do it. And actually, it affects your performance massively. So as a boxer, it's not going to affect you that much because actually, you are fit and it's all about skills. Where for powerlifting, you're trying to lift something that's external to your body. So that's not going to move for you. You can't deceive it. It's literally just the bar and weights, and it's 3 or 4 times your body weight. So actually, you need to fuel yourself in a way that's going to help you lift that weight. So what I decided was actually I don't go above 1% of my actual comp weight all year round, because actually I don't want to lose 5 kilo, and that also as well means that losing 5 kilo means that my strength plummets. So actually, what am I doing? All that training, I've trained at 5 kilo heavier. I've deceived myself and my body was in comp. I have to lose that 5 kilo and still manage to live the same weight. It just doesn't happen. So it's very, very important that I kind of stick to kind of bodyweight boundaries in the off season, because there's no off season in powerlifting. So when I'm not competing, there's no specific diet that I follow. It's all about it's all about health first, because obviously without health, there's everything else falls down. And then after that, we think about optimizing body composition. So how much lean muscle can I pack on my body and still be in weight? And that comes after you've kind of hit your health requirements. So everything's about like prioritizing protein, prioritizing energy, and kind of making sure that, like, I'm not saying we don't treat ourselves, but making sure that the treats are factored in that plan, and you can still achieve your goals. Because obviously at the highest level, any tiny percentage and you're either winning a medal or you're out of it completely. And that's the fine margins that I have to play with.
You must be incredibly disciplined to be able to follow a regime like that. I'm sure it comes with its difficulties, doesn't it?
Yeah, for someone with a sweet tooth like mine, I honestly think when I retire, I'm going to be like the legless Mr. Blobby, because like I love sweet things. So you have to adapt, because when you start the sport and you commit to it, you know exactly what it takes to be at that sort of level and the fine margins you're playing with. And diet is probably the most important thing, because people think, oh, training is important. Well, it is, but if you're not good in the kitchen in terms of how regimented you are, it's not going to, that training is for nothing. And I think the discipline required is tough, because I think initially I struggled because you had to weigh things, and that's inconvenient. And the fact that sometimes when you are kind of especially when you got heavy and you have to diet down, that was difficult, because you're always hungry, right? But I think we've now, obviously my maturity, we've found a way of living a lifestyle that actually I don't, for me, I don't think I'm dieting, because the food choices are great, my portions are good, my body comp's at a level where we've adapted it over a long period of time, that actually, like, it doesn't feel like I'm dieting. I'm still having the foods that I want. I can have a treat if I want to, because actually there's not much difference, because I know exactly what's going into my system. So yeah, like, it was tough in the beginning when I was 19, 20, but when you get older, you realize that actually, if you're consistent, it's okay.
So in a nutshell, do you keep a social distance from pizzas in your life then?
Pizza's not my it's not my choice when it comes to junk food. I'm more into like burgers, and obviously being Arab, kebabs. So yeah, like, also I like a bit of Chinese sometimes. I like noodles. But yeah, pizza for me is like once in 2 years. But I can probably finish a whole large pizza to myself if you let me. And then a top of Ben and Jerry's. So
that is absolutely normal behavior.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you don't do that, then you're not having pizza right.
Exactly.
Can we have your Domino's code, please? If it automatically comes to Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, I don't share my food because I love it too much. But basically, yeah, but there's a lot of social distancing when it comes to junk food. Until I'm allowed. If I'm allowed, I'll just go for it.
I'm sure. I sort of wanted to ask you one more question, because when I spoke to you this afternoon, and then I had a follow-up chat with Adam, I understood that you were actually from Lebanon, and then you and your family moved to the UK back in the days, which is something very much similar to mine as well, because I'm from India, and then I moved to the UK just recently. So just wanted to ask from personal experience as well. I know this is a very big change in your life when you have to actually move the country and then call some of the country home, which is now completely fine because we've been here a very, very long time. But then how does that feel? I mean, how does that change affects your personal life, and did it interfere with what you wanted to do professionally as well?
No, so I think for me, when I came over to the UK, I was only 6 months old.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, like the UK has been pretty well, not my home. Actually, me going back to Lebanon was weird.
Okay.
I was like, how do I fit into a country that I'm not really aware of? Only because my parents told me about Lebanon and where I'm from. I didn't really feel like I was from Lebanon because I had British values, raised the British way, representing the country, got all these opportunities here, and going back, I was like, well, I don't really belong here. My Arabic is terrible. Having to communicate with my extended family was hard work because my Arabic was absolutely broken. Even my parents struggled to understand me. So, like, for me, I feel as British as anyone, and this is the country I've represented. So, I've always been, my parents always wanted me to kind of represent Lebanon. Like when I got into sport, but I said to them, like, the country's given me everything we've ever wanted, and I'm loyal. I can't turn my back on a country that's done that. So, I've been lucky that I've been given the opportunities that I've been given, and if you compare it to Lebanon, them opportunities have been very limited. So, I think I've made the right choice.
No, that's really interesting. I've got a. When I say controversial question, I don't know. You can decide for that for yourself. So many people who lift but don't compete use steroids. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I've got quite a well. I think if people know me, they know my stance on doping. I do a lot of anti-doping work.
Okay.
My PhD's in anti-doping, so they know that I'm an anti-doper. I don't like drugs in sport. However, people that go to the gym regularly, that don't compete, and there's no rules that they're under, if that makes them feel better about themselves and more confident, and if a lot of it affects their mental health, if it's positive for them, then you can't really stop people doing it. You can't. However, the problem that I have is that competing in sport against athletes that are clean, that practice fair play, that compete at, they work so hard to be there. If you're going to deny them by taking something you shouldn't, then you should be banned completely. Because it's so unfair to compete against someone you know is enhanced. Where in the normal world, if you're gonna not compete and you're doing it for yourself, then I've personally got no problem with it. I don't like it. I'd never do it myself, but I know people feel confident if they do. But yeah, at the top level, for me, I'm just it drives me crazy.
Yeah, so keep it out of competitions, but if you want to do it personally, do what you want.
Yeah, just don't compete in sport.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I think Zen, you should take notes. Should never use the sandpaper when you bowl in cricket games.
Okay, you had no connotation, no connection to that, but I'll take that on board. So Ali, we were just reading on Wikipedia, and we came across something that on Wikipedia said that you almost died in 2010. Now I don't know how accurate that is, but if that's true, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I got after Beijing, I got 9 months of absolute hell, but then I got diagnosed with Crohn's in 2009. At the time, I didn't know what Crohn's disease was. I just thought, like, you give me some medication, I'll go home and I get better and I'll start competing again. But in a short period of time, I was kind of got back from Beijing. I was bedridden for 9 months, lost about 25 kilos body weight in 2 months. I was very ill, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. At first, they thought it was potentially cancer. So having to come back from, a dream come true to getting tested for cancer was quite, what a turnaround that was in a few months. But yeah, so it took them. I didn't know what it was, and then in 2010, I had a massive flare-up of Crohn's and got rushed in, and it was a life-saving operation to save me, thinking that this was probably going to be it, but it wasn't. Luckily, I've survived.
So how do you deal with that then? Like, does your sort of plans kind of change when you go through that and you see things from a different perspective? Does it change your perspective on life? And did it have like sort of any big impact on you, or you just managed to, just go on with it and carried on?
So when I got the diagnosis of Crohn's, so this was 2009, it got explained to me that obviously you can't cure it, and you have to adapt your life in a way that tries to reduce symptoms. But also at the top level of sport, it's never been done, not really. So the stat in 2009 was no person with Crohn's had ever won a medal at the Olympic or Paralympic Games. It's never been done.
Wow.
So actually, they haven't got a blueprint of how to do it, and the research back then wasn't really that great compared to now. So yeah, for me, I was just like, wow, like they're pretty much telling me to retire here because it's not been done. But I felt at 20 years old, I felt, why couldn't I attempt to be the first? And then obviously I didn't realize what I was in for. So obviously at 20, you're like, oh, look at the ego, I can do this. Like, look at me. I've made it to the top level of sport, so I can attack it. Not realizing just how powerful Crohn's is. And it absolutely smashed me for like years. I underestimated it, and I shouldn't have done. I think that moment when I got rushed in, afterwards, when I survived, I actually thought to myself, this is the reason why I need to carry on and try to pull it off. It can't be the reason that I retire. And that was a promise to myself that Crohn's wouldn't be the reason I retired. It would be the reason why I carried on.
Wow, very touching that, Ali. Thanks for that.
Ali, you briefly mentioned about PhD topic that you're researching about. Do you mind sharing some of the details of your PhD work and what was your thought process before you actually thought, no, wait, I need to do this PhD degree and so what was your thought process behind that?
So growing up in a sport that historically had problems with doping, so powerlifting, the stats are quite clear. It's probably the worst, the most high risk sport for doping at that level, only because of the physical qualities you need to lift big weights. It's just just how it is. And I realized quite quickly that the system, even though it's improving, and it has improved since I started, through education and testing and stuff like that, I felt that there's still gaps in the system, and gaps that should be investigated a little bit further. So obviously I'm a massive anti-drug, anti-doping person. So I felt like I could potentially help the system through an athlete's perspective at that level. It's rare that you get an athlete at that level that's got my insight in a sport that is considered high risk to potentially give something. Well, I want to give something back, but also I want to help the system implement policies that will truly protect clean athletes. Because I think there should be more stuff to protect us. So my PhD is looking at not just substance doping, but different ways of cheating at that level. So, hoping that, it depends what I find in my studies, but hoping that what I find, the system will actually we need to probably address this and think about this going forward. But we'll see what I find. The data might not even support what I'm saying. If that's the case, then I hold my hands up. But I'm hoping it might at least be aligned with some of the stuff I've been thought about the last 10 years.
I think looks like you've got a very detailed perspective of why you want to do it, and I wish you all the very best with your PhD topic and all your research. I'll pass it on to Zain or Connor.
Well, we've got a comment in the chat. It says, "Great talk, very inspiring. Can you ask Ali how does he find balance between academic study and training and powerlifting?" That's a question from Satwan.
Oh wow! How do I balance it?
Yes.
Well, not only have I got my PhD in training, and obviously trying to make sure that I'm healthy, I'm also, well, I think is it today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Tuesday.
So on Thursday, I'm launching something potentially quite special. Well, I think it is anyway. I'm being biased. I'm hoping to. You'll find out on Thursday, but I'm hoping to launch something that would hopefully help disabled people gain access to exercise like never before. So yeah, to balance everything is actually quite easy for me because I kind of think about. I've always said to myself that I want to, as a human, as a person, not only the athlete, but as a person, I want to achieve my potential in life. And I struggle with people that don't want to, that haven't got that desire to reach their potential. So what my potentially looks like is that I've got loads of different projects and I want to make a meaningful impact. So the PhD hopefully will make a meaningful impact to policy change going forward in sport. What I'm launching on Thursday might potentially make a meaningful impact recreationally for disabled people and exercise. And personally, a Paralympic gold medal was something that I've wanted since I was 6. So, for me, I'm trying to hit my potential with anything that I do, and that's how I live.
Brilliant. No, and so for can you give us a sneak peek of what we can expect on Thursday?
Let's just say it'll be probably the first of its kind ever, I think.
Oh my goodness, that's something.
Yeah. So yeah, like make sure you check out my social media channels on Thursday to find out. I think a lot of hard work's gone into it since lockdown. I'm hoping people like it because it's for them. Me. So yeah, I'm quite proud of it with what we've created.
Anything we can do to promote or support with that?
Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, well, yeah. If you can share it on Thursday if you want to. If you think it's good enough, and give us any feedback that you don't. If you don't think it's good enough, give us any feedback. But yeah, like I'm quite proud of it because it's something that I've never done before. I'm definitely not a business person at all. So I've had to learn a lot of skills the last 6 months that I've not had before. But I think it might put me in good stead after I retire. The skill set that I've gained, and that's good because it means I'm developing as a person too.
Oh, sounds interesting. I'm excited already. Right, 2 days, and we'll see. We'll see if we can get sharing.
Awesome, thank you.
So Ali, how if people are watching, if they want to get involved in powerlifting, what would you say to them? What would your recommendations be? Or how can they get involved?
Well, firstly, like it's quite simple to get into powerlifting because any gym will have a bench, a squat rack, maybe a deadlifting platform. So like it's actually quite accessible as a sport. It's also quite cheap because actually if you go to the gym, all you do is pay for membership, which is not that expensive these days. So if I think initially go to the gym initially, if you actually want to compete, then I suggest to potentially get a coach because I think it's important for people to improve, to actually be accountable to somebody, because sometimes people will drop their standards because they're not being people are not checking in on them, so I feel like having a coach, someone to not only guide you through that process but also make you accountable is quite a big thing because it makes you want to improve. And then when it comes to obviously competing, you'd probably want you want to get membership. So if you are an able-bodied powerlifter, you want to go to the British Powerlifting Federation and go through there. Great community. And if you're someone that's disabled that wants to bench press, then you contact British Weightlifting because we're always in need for other disabled people to get into the sport because our sport is it's quite competitive, but the actual process and being part of such an incredible team is it's been incredible.
Ali, I'd like to ask you a question from a professional point of view. So the job that I'm currently doing at the University of Bradford has to do with community as well and people around us. So do you think that sorry, this is just going to be on a slightly serious note. So Do you think that for the wider society, is there any room for improvements for their outlook towards people with disabilities, or if they can do something, or if we can do something so that we can make opportunities accessible for everyone? I know you've worked hard, really hard to reach where you are, but there'd be so many other people as well who have the talent, but they don't find the right opportunity. So do you think there's something that we can work on as society?
I think so. With my project, I obviously did some market research first to understand what the barriers were to that accessibility. Now, I'd say that I'm probably in a quite privileged position as a disabled person because I've been lucky to compete at the highest level of sport. So the facilities and the access that I've gotten has been world class. So I did not pretend to know how hard it was for the recreational disability community to go through. So I needed to understand before I look, So the one thing that came out of it was actually lack of knowledge, and that's a big thing. Like people just don't understand what they go through on a daily basis, and then the accessibility. So we know that buildings have to be accessible. You have to have lifts and ramps and disabled changing rooms, but actually, is the equipment in the building itself accessible? What's the point of having an accessible building if you can't use it? You get in there and you can't use anything. What's the point?
Or vice versa, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, for example, I was at a restaurant once and the disabled toilet was upstairs, but they had no lift. It had to go upstairs. I'm like, what? I don't understand. I don't get it. So I think for me, it's all about the finer. I think in the UK we're good. Like, I've been to a lot of countries that we are good here. Trust me, we do a lot. But it's the minor details now. It's like, yes, the building is good, but can you actually, when you go in there, can you access the equipment? And if you can't, how can we help you? Or are the people in charge, do they really appreciate what you're going through? Because, for example, I'll give you an example. Like if I wanted a personal trainer, but then personal trainers would train me like an able-bodied person, not someone with a disability. They don't truly understand. So they don't have that as part of their training. Why not? As a PT, you're supposed to care for everybody, not just not people with functioning legs. It's just little details for me now where you have to truly understand what they go through. And I think that's what I think. You have to make it personal, because we're always kind of talking about making things personal to people in society, but actually we kind of forget about disabled people, the vulnerable, what they really go through, and putting things in place. I think COVID has made me realize actually the people most at risk are actually that sort of minority, because nobody truly understands.
Thank you for that explanation, Ali. I do really appreciate it, and I'll see if in future we can work together and combat this particular issue. Then I'll be more than honored to have a chance and work with you.
No, thank you. Good question.
Ali, tell me, what does an athlete representative do? This is a new thing I've heard.
Yeah, so I think in the UK we've got this system where we try and make it athlete central, because actually the system's there for athletes. Well, athletes competing at the highest level, and you're there to help them get there. And it's important that athletes get input on how the system is run to make sure that the system is doing everything it possibly can for optimizing performance, but actually at the same time, improving them as human beings too. The system knows that actually we're not machines, and actually we're going to have a life outside of sport eventually. And how do we help athletes transition? So as an athlete rep, what I do is I get them kind of concerns amongst my athletes and my teammates and whoever I represent. And I kind of put it to the sport and go, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I can see this policy, but have you factored in this? So it's actually kind of educating the system and how to make it more athlete friendly.
Brilliant, thank you. And we got a question from one of our listeners called Moses. He says, what would your advice be to people who want to achieve their dreams but are hesitant, worried?
I think from my experience, I always say to people that you don't want to look back in regret. And what I do, I set myself such silly goals that I think they're nuts, that they're not like achievable. Because obviously you get taught about smart goals, right? I actually believe that's not very good at all. I think smart goals actually limit you. So what I do is I set near impossible goals, because I wake up every day thinking, if I do not apply maximum effort today, then I'm not going to get anywhere near that. And I have to do that every single day when I wake up. How good am I today? Like, what can I squeeze out of myself today to put myself in good stead for that goal? And for me, it's a kind of accumulating enough consistent days to give yourself a chance. And even if I don't achieve that dream, if I become close, I know I've achieved something quite special, because the dream is that big. So my advice is find something that you have to push yourself to limits, try and achieve. So yeah, set something that's really, really big.
No, I really like that, because especially when you mention the smart goals, if you do something that's almost very realistic or too realistic, there's a chance you'll underperform.
Exactly. You don't really reach your potential. And for me, it's all about potential. How much can you squeeze out yourself?
Brilliant, thanks, Ali. Zayn and Charlotte, any closing comments?
Yeah, I've just got one question that I have been wanting to ask. So, Ali, have you broken a world record yet? And if you have, then how did you feel to do that?
Yes, I broke my first world record in 2013. And then I was lucky enough to keep breaking it until probably over like a 2-3 year period.
Wow.
And then, they were my heydays. But yeah, like, for me, it was shock, because I never thought about a world record. Not really. I think at the time it was all about, medals, and you dream of going to the Paralympic Games, but you never really think about world records ever until you actually get into that position. And then when I broke it, I couldn't believe that I'd done something which nobody in that weight class has ever done. That's mind-boggling. Obviously, it's been broken since by other people, but it's the fact that you held the world record for about 3 years. That's insane. And that's like the cherry on top. So you've got competing at Paralympic Games, and then you've got the medals, and you get the personal best. But actually, the world record is just that cherry on top of the cake, where it's nice to have. Obviously, it's great to have. We don't really think about it until it's happened, because it's not really been your priority.
Yeah.
Because with world records in my sport, they're so big, they're so heavy, that it's just you don't really think about you're going to be anywhere near it until you reach them sort of heights.
So what was the weight that you broke then for the world record?
So in the 3 year period, I went from 185.5, and my world record my last world record was 194.
Wow.
Yeah, but I've benched 202 in the gym. So it's been that number is just silly.
It is crazy.
Even I'm thinking how the hell did you do that? You're struggling now. I don't know how you do that 5 years ago.
Brilliant.
Ali, I had a final question as well, actually, and my question is: have you ever been to our lovely city of Bradford?
I have, yeah, because obviously I lived in Leeds for a long time. So Bradford was I had mates in Bradford that lived there. So yeah, I was there quite often. I love being up north. When I lived there, it was the best. Actually, it was the best kind of time of my life, really, in terms of how good I was at competing wise. That was where my world records were, and the fact that I went to Leeds Beckett Uni as well. It was just great times being up north. So yeah, I'm quite familiar with Bradford.
Did you do an event here? I can't remember. Was it you, Ali, who did an event here?
I think it was me.
It was. Yeah, when are you going to come back?
Well, when it's safe.
When it's safe, we'll get you back.
We'll pencil you in. pencil you in for after lockdown then.
There we go.
Yeah.
When we're out of tier 3.
Yeah, I'm in tier 2 here in Loughborough.
Oh, you know to show off, all right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ali, for joining us today. Yeah, really good to chat with you. Very humbling to chat with you. You're a very humble guy for all the things you've achieved. So, no, really, really nice to talk to you.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And to everybody watching, next week, I believe, Thursday, thank you. We'll be joined with Nathan Maguire, who's a 23-year-old wheelchair racer who competes in the T55 classification in the sport of wheelchair racing in the 100, 200, 400, 800 and 1,500 metres. He's competed and won medals at 2 European Championships, 2 World Championships, Commonwealth Games, Rio, you name it. So yeah, tune in for Thursday, 6 PM for that. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Ali, pleasure as usual, and we'll get you back to Bradford when it's safe to do so.
Awesome. No, thanks for that. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Ali.
Insights.
Nice talking to you. Thanks.
See you later.